Yo, what's up, guys? Chads.
GM.
GM, Chad Cow.
Yeah, amazing to wake up this morning and see a tweet from Li.Fi that they're going through the THORChain integration. So hyped up on that. Did not know when they were going to announce that publicly, but we got Li.Fi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited for Li.Fi. I don't know if you guys know what Li.Fi does, but they're a DEX aggregator, and they do all the swaps in MetaMask and Phantom and dozens of wallets and other DEXs. So they're an absolutely huge DEX aggregator to have on our side.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's.
awesome. That's a big one.
Do we have any idea? Like, I'm out of curiosity, like how much volume they do per day?
So okay, I don't know the answer to that question, but uh, how much volume did MetaMask do in 2021? Something like some absurd number. I think they made like 150 million revenue or something like that. So if you like go back, if you do some backwards math there, you think of like 85 basis points as a fee, and you kind of run backwards from that. It's pretty high. Like they do all the swaps in MetaMask, which is definitely not a small number, and Phantom and a ton of other aggregators too. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, aggregator in the space.
So, like, if MetaMask wants to do a trade from like ETH to USDC, it would like Li-Fi would try to would route some amount of that traffic to THORChain based upon price execution.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how their aggregator works. I'm not actually sure on the specific, like how they choose what route. I'm assuming for a lot of things they do Uniswap just because, really deep pools, good price execution. But I mean, who knows how that'll change in the future, especially as we get better price execution than Uniswap on on ERC20 trades
Yeah, yeah.
for really big ones. That is, I don't know. Maybe that'll change. I don't actually like. I don't know like the internal calculus and stuff like that. Like this is obviously like something that needs a lot of work still, and something that they're just like getting started on really. So it's not like it's live or anything like that. It's
Yeah, yeah.
just they're just officially announcing that they're working on it. So what the actual end implementation is, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'd be interesting to see what happens because I'd be curious too about if they're going to do like affiliate fees or not, or how that's going to work. If they're going to just not do affiliate fees, or are they going to like have their own, or have MetaMask affiliate fees possibly, or whatever?
Yeah, good question. All stuff to work through. A lot of aggregators actually don't really care about affiliate fees. They're kind of just concerned about market share, and that's come up like a couple times with a bunch of different aggregators. Like just talking with a good number of them, and a lot of them are just more concerned about getting market share than they are for fees, which is that's totally fine, like posture to take, and it means that the interface can take a bigger fee, or it'll just be a cheaper swap. So we'll see what the actual shape of it is as it shapes up over the next uh, you know Q1. Hopefully we'll see something come out of here. Although I've obviously have no idea how long it'll take to actually ship something like this out.
I didn't realize they were the back end on MetaMask and Phantom. That's pretty exciting and gets my mind going as to future possibilities. Like if they value, native Bitcoin and things like that, then maybe that eventually trickles into the wallets, and then it's in a prime spot for MetaMask, Phantom, other big wallets.
Yeah, especially if MetaMask wanted to get Bitcoin integration, hypothetically, and Li-Fi already does it, then like it might just abstract away the technical complexities of actually the work to support Bitcoin, and all of a sudden it's a lot easier for MetaMask to like a lot less of a friction for MetaMask to like support THORChain and Bitcoin and other things. Like that would be pretty fucking baller as shit.
Yeah, in my mind, that's kind of where the aggregator play goes. Is like so major aggregators start implementing THORChain, right, and they start getting Bitcoin into their swaps, and then the natural evolution of that is for wallets to go, well, okay, there's this huge growing share of people who want to trade Bitcoin, obviously. And this aggregator that we're already hooked into for our ERC20 swaps has the capability of doing Bitcoin swaps too. And there's a completely separate market that we could do for Bitcoin swaps on top of the ERC20 swaps. So then by doing the small, not small lift, but by doing the lift of putting in Bitcoin, which is gaining net new users, you also get that new revenue source of being able to put swaps through. So like, to me, it's just the natural progression of things as we get into, as we are in the biggest aggregators. It just makes sense to me that the wallets indexes start to follow the trend and add support to that. It's kind of funny because like we're kind of Bitcoinizing the whole DeFi space here through these integrations. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Like it's kind of like Udi-esque almost. Like we're like backdoor orange pilling the all of the ERC20 wallets and dexes and things.
Yeah, and it feels like they're finally starting to realize, like, hey, wait a second, like, literally largest asset in crypto, we don't support that, might be important, might be something people want.
Just maybe.
Yeah, I saw Will requested to come up on the stage. What's up? These are open spaces, by the way. So if anyone like ever wants to, I mean, I think most people know this, but if anyone ever wants to come up and talk or ask a question, feel free to do so at any point. So if you have something you want to say, go for it.
I think Will is having trouble with his mic or something.
Yeah, maybe not. All right, we'll leave him up here for a couple minutes in case he gets it. Just chime in at any time. But yeah, so I mean, that was just the first thing I woke up to this morning, and it's been a huge couple of weeks for us.
Yeah, the other integration news that's recent is I think Edge Wallet added Rune as an asset that they support now in general. So
yep,
that's a nice little integration bump.
Yeah, that's the first Rune integration we've had in a while, and it's not even something. It's not something that we've been pushing a lot. Just trying to get wallets to integrate Rune because it's like it's in my mind. It's not even like it's not really a mover for the wallets. Like it's not like they're all of a sudden gonna gain 10x in popularity from implementing Rune. But what they can do is get a lot more adoption just from implementing swaps and savers and lending and things. So it's like that's really what we've been pushing. So we haven't really seen too many Rune integrations, but now Edge has landed that as well. Big fans of Edge. Those guys, that team there is a bunch of ship chads too.
Yeah, those guys are great over there.
I have a question related to Rune, the token, and what role it plays in swaps. I know I should probably have just read about this, but I'm too lazy to do it. But somebody told me that when you're making a swap on THORChain, the Bitcoin has to buy Rune in some way before the swap is completed. I don't know how accurate is that.
Yeah, I mean that's accurate. So every pool is Rune and another asset. So Rune, Ethereum, Rune, Bitcoin. So a Bitcoin to ETH swap is selling Bitcoin to buy Rune and then selling Rune to buy Ether. So every trade goes through Rune that goes through THORChain essentially. So you can do a Bitcoin to ETH swap and you never interact with THORChain at all directly, but you're still buying and selling Rune in the process.
Okay, and how does the impairment loss plays into that, considering that Rune being an altcoin is not as stable as close to Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Well, that applies to liquidity providers, but if you're a swapper, impermanent loss doesn't really apply to you.
Yeah, I mean for liquidity providers, yes.
Well, it means you have to take into consideration that you might experience impermanent loss based on price movements. I mean, it just added risk that liquidity providers take by providing liquidity.
Right, and that's just true. That's just true with any AMM has that same attributes. And if you want like a lesser, if your theory is to have a lesser IL, like that's what you want. The best thing to do is either you get two stable coins, or this is not like a THORChain specifically, this is more generally. Either you have two stable coins and hope that one doesn't depeg, or you get two volatile assets that are similar in market cap, and they'll be more likely to move together than Bitcoin and some small market cap asset.
All right, thank you. And just a quick follow up on that. So the way the AMs and Rune are built are basically exactly the same as Ethereum, with no difference whatsoever. And and on Ethereum, we have a lot more stablecoin integration. Is there something close to an idea of a Bitcoin-based stablecoin of some sort, or USDT is pretty much standard still?
There is no Bitcoin stablecoin on THORChain, and this is something we've explored in the past, but it's not really feasible or reasonable to do that. Like a Bitcoin base stablecoin, in my opinion, the only way you can do that is through a trusted federation. And I'm not a big fan of trusted federations. I don't think it's really, I don't think it really helps in the viewpoint of this industry that to rely on trusted federations to manage things. So you could do one, but it wouldn't be a trustless system, and that's why we haven't done it, in my opinion.
Cool. Khan, what's up, man? Or crypto.
What's up?
Oh, what's up, man?
Yeah. Hi, guys. So, two things I wanted to comment and ask. One is Chainflip, the little brother launched. So I've been seeing some tweets on like how they're gonna cover the Polkadot, like they're gonna be supporting Polkadot. It's a large market cap chain, so I'm wondering if there's like an easy path of like using Chainflip to route orders to and from DOT to other assets, and use THORChain. How feasible is that? Is that like I wanted to just ask that as a starter. And then the other topic that I kind of want to discuss is like bonds versus pools. I think the network is like way over bonded right now. I don't know if it's at like all-time high in that regard. The yield in pools is just like massive. So yeah, I'm like in the next days, I'm definitely expecting pools to grow. But yeah, like it's actually surprising to me that they haven't grown that fast. I was expecting like people would actually pile up by now. But curious how you guys think about this.
Yeah. So the first one, a Chainflip DEX integration, I would be totally down for that. I think that'd be awesome to do. I don't know how they feel about it. I mean, they've kind of insinuated in the past that they're down to party in that kind of sense, and so I'd be definitely open to that. And I don't see why it would be why we couldn't do that. Well, we both support probably Bitcoin and Ethereum, so might be able to do it through the Ethereum bridge. Like have like we send ETH to them, and then they send the ETH into Polkadot, and then Polkadot gets sent out. Like that's possible. I don't know the specifics of how the technical specifics of how Chainflip works within the context of like a DEX integration, but I'm totally down in general for that idea. It'd be more efficient, of course, if we supported each other more directly, in the sense that we added Chainflip to THORChain and they added THORChain to Chainflip, and then it'd be a bit more direct. We don't have to do that so much with Maya though, because Maya already supports Rune, so we can kind of go through that direction. But in general, I'm totally down for such a thing. The other question you asked was about the bond and TVL. The reason why the bond is so high right now is largely because, one, the Rune asset has been the highest performing cryptocurrency asset for like months now, or at least like the top one or two, or what the hell the number is. And so because it's performing so much better than all the other assets in crypto, the value of the bond is increasing more than the value of the pools inherently. So that's because the pools are half and half and the bond's 100% Rune. So it's like it's moving, it's getting more that way because Rune's price is performing so well. And then at the same time, we're getting a lot more bonds to come in because of people like THORChain Bull and others running bonded nodes, making it easier for um, you know medium Rune holders in a sense to be able to bond up more easily and participate on the bond side. So there's a good reason why it is the way it is. And to your right, like a lot of the yield is going to the LPs and stuff, but I suspect that like over a longer period of time, the pools will get deeper, and they'll catch up to the bond over a longer period of time, like months, not so much weeks. So you might be right, though. I mean, who knows, like how fast this stuff should react? But this project is still, even despite all of its recent success, it's still relatively unknown to a lot of people out there. And when people see such high yield numbers, they kind of get like weirded out by it, and they kind of like don't believe it. I think it's a scam or something of this nature, which I understand why. But I always encourage people to do the research and understand why the yield's so high, not just that it is high.
Yeah, and then just to add to that, right? Like there's the yield, that composition of that yield amongst different participants in the pools is another story. Now that like there's a significant amount of savers in the pool, the savers are owned the non-Rune asset that they deposit, which means basically when Rune goes up, there's just a lot more effectively. It just boosts the yield for the dual LPs, which I think is like it's like a different notion to a lot of people who aren't familiar with THORChain. So that even boosts the yields higher. I've had like friends asking me like how the yields are actually so high. Like I think this is one of the factors that people don't like immediately see. So like I expect like LPs to brag about their yields in Twitter, and then like after that maybe people will just like um, feel the
Hopefully.
FOMO. The other path, which is totally also feasible, but maybe not like definitely not as useful for THORChain, is that node operators might actually think that, oh, like the yield on pools is like way higher than what I'm getting here, and so they might actually exit to become a node operator and then join the pool. In which case, they like that wouldn't be as productive because it's just like it's like an internal liquidity in a sense. There's no like external participants joining the network. Yeah, so let's see.
Yeah, just one thought on this. Like we saw during the summer that during the summer we hit the point where we were approaching underbonded, where we were essentially at the hard cap for maybe like a month. I think someone maybe remembers that better than me, but we were at the point where we were basically at the cap of of TVL that we can support on the network for the amount of bond that we had, and now we're in the complete opposite situation where we're way over bonded, so the network is over secured for the amount of liquidity that it has, and it took a couple of months to like maybe a month, maybe two, to correct for that problem and basically balance it out. So like one thing I've been thinking about is how the incentive pendulum. I mean, it provides the incentives in whatever direction we need to give rewards to most. So right now, 75% of yields are going towards LPs. So that's like for the basically the past month, LPs have been earning looks like around 150K a day, while all the nodes are earning around like 60 to 70 a day, basically. So a lion's share of all the rewards are going to the LPs, and since it's not like this is just incentivizing human behavior. So I think all this stuff takes like a month or two at least to really take effect, and I think we've really seen a huge increase in liquidity this month, especially with savers and things like that. So things are definitely moving in the right direction. I think it's just a slow process, and it's great for the LPs because when during the summer they were not getting very much yield at all because a lot of that was going towards the nodes instead because we were almost at an underbonded state. But now it is the opposite scenario, and the LPs are finally, getting paid basically for providing liquidity because the network's trying to onboard more and more liquidity. So seems to me like things are working pretty well. I think it just takes a little time to play out. I'm curious to see like what's going to happen over the next month or two. I think TVL is going to go up until for the next couple of months at least. We'll have to see.
Yeah, would be a shame if we don't break the all-time high. I'm pretty confident that we will soon.
So which all-time high are you referring to? Like total?
And not like non-rune TVL in terms of like dollar value.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll happen. Just because as Rune's price moves, the TVL gets also the amount of Bitcoin and everything else also kind of comes into the network naturally. So it's just like we're not even really like anywhere close to like the top of the bull market. So it's just like naturally at some point we'll probably break $1 trillion or 2 trillion in market in TVL, in total TVL, not non-Rune TVL, but it's total TVL. And so like to me that's just inevitability almost. Especially if Rune keeps on performing well, like it's been performing well for the last few months, if it keeps on going in the angle that's going, like for sure it's going to happen.
Hey guys, can I ask a couple questions?
Shoot.
Okay, good. Yeah, I made a whole bunch of list here. So I think it's pretty obvious that so as far as trading and swapping and stuff, things are going to be more decentralized. In particular, now that we know what's been happening with Binance and everything. So what is the long term vision of THORChain? I mean, is it to be the deepest liquidity DEX? Are you guys thinking about doing some other things, or and then once you answer that, I've got a couple of questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, so it's fair to say that different people in our community have different viewpoints on what the long-term goal of the project is. I certainly have mine, and Chad or Thoreau might have theirs, and all are legitimate. But I'll just share my opinion. And my opinion is that THORChain should become the largest exchange in the world by trade volume, and not just decentralized exchanges, but centralized as well. It should surpass Binance one day. That's the ultimate goal that I have in sight from my eyes, is just getting it to be the biggest thing, biggest exchange in the world. And by doing so, you would inherently THORChain becomes a place that defines the price of Bitcoin, defines the price of Ethereum, defines the price of various other assets, just because that's where all the liquidity is, and everything else becomes the tail end, and we become the head, right? And so I think that is what my long-term goal for the AMM is, to accomplish that particular goal. Outside of that, I also see THORChain like very well poised to do other very significant things in the space, right? We're talking about savers, which is a similar concept to what like BlockFi and Celsius used to do for like Bitcoin yield and that kind of thing. So those companies in themselves had 10 to 20 billion dollars of Bitcoin and other assets because of just that yield kind of concept, and also because of loans as well. Lending is another thing we've been kind of like dipping our toes in lately, and we have a lending product that's out and available today that's a very novel and interesting concept that's still proving itself. It's still proving it's working. So far, it's worked exactly like as it's been planned, which is great. But it's much too early to call it, a win or whatever. We won't really know whether or not lending will be like working or not working until we've gone through a full bull and a full bear. So we're years away from actually fully understanding the success or failure of lending itself in this new novel design. But and the other thing that I'm interested in, that I think would be really fascinating, is to get an algo stablecoin that actually fucking works for once. Most of the stablecoins that exist today are the centralized ones are over collateralized, and all of them have no adoption, or very little adoption. The biggest one is DAI at $5 billion, which is maybe 5% of the total market cap of stablecoins. Like, it's fucking nothing. It's almost 95, 96% of stablecoins are USDT and USDC and other centralized ones. And I would also make the argument that DAI is not a decentralized stablecoin. It's backed by 80% of centralized assets. So including USDC and stocks and bonds and other fucking random, real world assets. So to me, it's not even a stablecoin. So, and the next big decentralized stablecoin after DAI is, way far away. I actually don't even know what it is off the top of my head. Maybe I'll look it up just for giggles here. Maybe somebody else on the stage knows what is the biggest stablecoin after DAI. I don't really quite remember. Anybody know that?
Frax, maybe? That's just a guess. I didn't look it up.
I had it in my screen like a while back, and I don't remember how I got to it. Where was that?
Is it the
that's right.
Tron one? USDD? Like it's depegged all the time?
The Tron
Is it PY
stablecoin that's
maybe?
where was that? I was here to stables overview. True USD is the next one, which is that centralized or decentralized? I'm not familiar with that.
No, those are centralized. That's just it's the new BUSD. They're moving from BUSD to TUSD.
True USD. Yeah, so there's Tether USDC, DAI True USD, BUSD, which is fucking dying, First Digital USD, which is also fucking dying, I believe, USDD, which has depegged multiple times, and that market cap is $700 million, which is fucking nothing compared to the close to 100 billion market cap of stablecoins, right? Terra Classic USD is number 9 with a 500 million. I mean, for fuck's sake here. Frax is number 8 with 669 million. So, in my opinion, this is like an area that has not been that is desperately needed in the industry of having a properly decentralized stablecoin that nobody has been able to find a product market fit for it, right? And partially because an over collateralized stablecoin is highly capital inefficient, which makes it not very a good asset to fuck around with, right? In a matter of speaking. So that's something we still need to accomplish as an industry, and we certainly cannot rely on Tether and USDC to be like the stablecoin of the industry, especially because these companies now have the ability to have a Terra-like collapse that is orders of magnitude larger than Terra was, that would push us back into a bear market like we've never seen before, because they're so fucking critical to so many DeFi protocols and lending protocols and fucking AMMs that it would just be such a fucking disaster if USDC decided to fuck it and just freeze tokens on Uniswap or whatnot. It would just cause a mass fucking panic. It's crazy that our entire DeFi industry is so reliant on USDC and Tether, considering it's so centralized, right? So this is a critically important thing for the industry as a whole that nobody is doing right. Everybody just keeps on taking the same recipe and doing nothing different, and then figuring that, oh yeah, we've got another stablecoin that is identical to every other fucking stablecoin out there, and it doesn't really do anything differently. It's not really getting any product market fit. It's not actually solving any particular problems because nobody's fucking buying it or using it or any of these things. So to me, THORChain is uniquely positioned to do a stable coin. One, because it actually has an algo stable coin design that actually fucking works, right? That actually it doesn't have its own pegging mechanism like Terra had, but rather it pegs across an index of all the stable coins across the industry, including the centralized ones, but not being reliant on the centralized ones. And so that is a very important thing for us to do as an industry for this thing. And the reason why we can do that and nobody else can is because we can connect to stablecoins across different ecosystems, from AVAX to BSC to ETH, of course, L2s, whatever. And we can combine all of these things together to create a much more reliable stablecoin than anything else. Even the Tor asset today is outperforming in terms of stability than Tether, than USDC, than BUSD, than all of the stablecoins that are currently being put into the pegging mechanism of Tor itself. It's actually outperforming all of them. So you can achieve a stablecoin that is actually more stable than the other stablecoins, and is decentralized, and it's capital efficient, and you can actually get some real fucking adoption because of that. I mean, to me, that's a long-term goal that I have, but the industry may feel, the community may feel different.
So I have my own thoughts on this, and even if what all of you said is just true, right? THORChain is has all these stables, and even if it comes up with this like ideal stable algo stable design, that is actually stable. I don't see how it can be used. And the reason is because like stablecoin is just very useful. Like people want the stablecoin and use it in DeFi, and THORChain is like doesn't have smart contracts. It's its own chain with its own security mechanism and all that. So if you
Yes.
want that stablecoin to be useful, you would have to export it to other chains. In which case, it goes like very much the opposite of the THORChain vision, which is like don't do wrapped assets, right? Because in this case you would have a wrapped Tor on Ethereum, like doing like going to Aave, going to whatever, like all of these like smart contract apps. So there, I don't see the big use case or the vision. I don't buy it, basically.
Yeah. So in order to do that, you're talking about where does the demand center come from for the Tor asset, right? Which is a very valid question to ask. We've talked about having yield systems within THORChain to do such a thing, and we've had a conversation about different methodologies of achieving that. But I kind of prefer the idea of what you were saying you didn't like, which is to export the asset to other chains and stuff. And the reason why that's not really a wrapped asset like you would traditionally think is because a wrapped asset is usually managed by a group of a trusted federation to do so, like a BitGo or something like this. But because THORChain is native to multiple chains like Ethereum, whatever, and has direct relationship and connection to those things, and the activity of all those people are actually doing it in an economically aligned kind of way, not just doing through altruistic purposes. THORChain has the ability to actually have a native Tor asset and on THORChain and a native Tor asset on Ethereum otherwise, similar to how USDC is not wrapped on Ethereum and it's not wrapped on Tor, on Tron, and it's not wrapped on Noble. It is the same USDC asset that exists on multiple chains because the entity that creates that asset can just deploy it on Ethereum and deploy it on Polygon and deploy it on all these things. And obviously USDC is controlled by Coinbase. But in our case, we're a decentralized network, not really controlled by anybody. And so we can deploy Tor on Ethereum, and we can deploy Tor onto Avalanche, and we can deploy the same as what USDC does via Coinbase. That's not, in my opinion, a wrapped asset because it's the same entity that is ensuring the value that creates the asset itself. Does that make sense?
I don't buy that. I understand your point, but I don't agree. And the reason why I don't agree is like if Ethereum validators were to like print ETH out of like they in the next block, if they try to print ETH out of thin air, the full nodes running that chain will just like completely ignore that, right? So then they can't just like print ETH and like have people accept it. Whereas like in this case, if THORChain validators were to like maliciously collude and like started to print like the algo stable and like basically export it to these other chains actually have no means of checking whether or not it's legit. So people
Right.
would be relying on like a committee, committee, it's not a federation. It is like an economically secured like committee, but it is still a committee basically. There is still like a handful of people who can get together and just like print an unlimited amount of tokens.
So, but that gets into the implementation details. It's not about the idea in general at a high level. You're talking about, well, what are the mechanisms? What are the capabilities that these individuals have the ability to? Do they have the ability to infinitely mint as much Tor as they want on Ethereum, let's just say, for example? And that all depends upon on the rules of the system, right? And so, for example, we've been talking, we had a little public conversation recently about the idea that that we can set a max percentage of the rune value, right, is there to back the value of Tor. I think you and I had a conversation with this directly on DMs a couple weeks ago. And so if you did that, then like you couldn't just mint it because you wouldn't be able to redeem it for the same value. You know what I mean? Like you can mint it and then you would get like for every Tor you get 99 cents and the next one would be 98 cents. But you wouldn't be increasing the total value that you can get out of it. You would just be having the same amount of value that you can have. So The implementation details matter within this context and the concerns that you legitimately have.
Hey, can I just ask a couple more questions? Because I'm not a technical person, but I'm super bullish on THORChain, and I just want to get some clarification. So, as things pick up and we get into this bull run, can you guys explain like the network's capacity, its limits? Are there things that you're worried about scaling, or can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Can you be more specific about what aspect of scaling you're concerned about? I mean, we can talk. There's a bunch of different ways to think about that question. I want to know if
Yeah.
there's a specific way that you had in mind.
Basically, are you guys going to be ready to handle all the incoming volume? I mean, I'm just seeing your numbers tick up here. My basic observation is that your volume is amazing. People are saying institutions are around the corner. The yields are good. It's such an amazing protocol. I don't want anything wrong or anything to happen. So, from a technical standpoint, are there things that you're concerned with? That's all.
Yeah, when it comes to the idea of like trade volume scalability, like how many transactions, how many swaps can it do, or whatever. There's a lot of different things to talk about within that topic, and we probably don't have time to do all of them. But the first thing that comes to mind, the biggest issue we have now, in my opinion, is arbitrage, right? Our pools are relatively small relative to its volume, right? So we have the trade volume of the third largest DEX in crypto, but we have the TVL of like, I think it's like the eighth or ninth or whatever hell the number is. And so we don't have very deep pools relative to the volume passing through it. And why that's important is because the deeper the pools are, the same amount of trade volume will have less of an effect to the price, the change in price of the pool, right? So if you have $1 million deep pool and you put $100,000 to it, it will change the price so much. But if it was a $10 million pool in terms of its depth, you put the same trades through it, it'll be a lot, more or less 10x less in terms of the change in the price. On top of that, you also have to worry about the arbitrage, because the deeper the pools, the arbitrage has more volume has to pass through the arbitrage bot to do it. So as we get deeper pools, we will be more scalable in terms of like maintaining good competitive pricing, right? Our pool price relative to the market price. But then you also have to get the arbitrage bots to like scale up their infrastructure, to scale up their capital, to be able to arb back larger volumes on this network, which hopefully, like we're seeing more people show up on the TVL side, on the saver side, people adding more liquidity and more individuals, more unique LPs, more that kind of thing. My hope is that we'll also see more arbitrage bots, and they're all incentivized the same way a TVL is to be an LP and such, because the yield that an arbitrage bot is making right now is pretty fucking sick, right? And so hopefully more arbitrage bots will come in, better, higher quality ones, like large institution arb systems, right, that are out there in the world today. That's the number one scalability thing I have in my mind, is not so much the number of swaps per second. I'm less concerned about that in this moment, and I'm more concerned about just arbitrage to be able to keep the price, the pool price matching the market price at all times. When you get outside of that, what I'm concerned about is just the time it takes to do a trade or a swap. You have to wait for conf counting, and then you have to wait for the trade to execute. Or if it's a streaming swap, it takes several blocks. And then you have to wait for the delayed outbound, which is pretty consistently around an hour right now because the volume is so high. So we have a bunch of changes coming out, either in 125 or 126 on next releases, to improve all three of those things, or rather the first one and the last one, to improve the conf counting to be faster in that regard, and put a max of like 6 confs for Bitcoin, for example, and then adding this thing called Swapper Clout, which allows the delayed outbounds to be significantly reduced. We'll see how much it actually affects in reality. My thinking is it'll probably have like a 90% reduction, best guess. On average, of course, things can be different from moment to moment, but on average, about 90% reduction, I'm figuring. So that'll improve the efficiency of that and make the trades faster. Which, by the way, by doing that, making the trades faster, arbitrage bots can arbitrage more effectively, because they can make one trade to correct the pool, get their money out the other side, swap their money back to the original asset through Binance or some exchange or whatever, and then do another kind of pass through to push the pool price back to the market price. So the faster the arbs can get in and out of the system, the more efficient that they're going to be, and the more powerful they're going to be to maintain like the stability of the pool price relative to that. But as time goes on and we get more TVL, as Cam was saying earlier about hitting like an all-time high of TVL, blah blah blah. As we do that, then ARB becomes less and less of an issue. Sort of. It's kind of a multifaceted topic, but
Yeah, on that, do arbs become a lot less important in the vision of THORChain setting the market price? Like in the vision where the deepest liquidity is on THORChain, then somebody moves the price, and then rather than arb it, that's just the price, right?
well, I mean, arbs they're only trading when they see profit, right? And so they're comparing THORChain's price to Bitcoin's price, or I'm sorry, Binance's price, or Coinbase's price. And the reason why you kind of how I think about it is the reason why THORChain can become a price setter is because if the most of the liquidity of the trade volume is happening through THORChain, and the tail liquidity is happening through Coinbase and Binance and whatever else out there, then the most of the market participants are trading through THORChain, and that the price movements happen first on THORChain, and then the arbs replicate that price movement from THORChain to Coinbase and to Binance and to Kraken and to Uniswap and to anything else out there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they are still critically important, and we also want to keep the arbs happy in many respects, and they have an important job. But as we get more liquidity of that kind of volume, we're going to need some serious fucking arbs to come in there to trade massive volumes to the network to keep the pool price matching the market price.
Awesome. And just one last thing before I step down here. Last time I was in the space, I asked you guys about the Sol integration, and I think there was some back and forth. I've been following all of you guys, and Anatoly has kind of insinuated that they're interested in the integration. Can you guys comment on that? And also, can you comment on is there any communication with Chainlink? Thank you.
No communications with Chainlink that I'm aware of, at least. I'm not sure why there would be communications with them. But for Solana, there is a lot of interest on our side to do that. And there's been some attempts on our side to reach out to the Solana, foundation and team, labs, whatever you want to call it, and try to get them to participate in such an integration. But that integration would be very expensive for us as a team to do, and very expensive for the protocol as a whole to maintain. Solana nodes are very expensive to run. They're like 256 or 512 gigabytes of memory. I mean, that thing is fucking massive. Like, it would probably double, I'm going to guess, double the cost to every validator out there today who's running a node. They're on average, let's just say they're spending like $5,000 a month to run the infrastructure to run a node, and so it would just double overnight. And in the situation now where like all the yields go into LPs and little's go into nodes, like it may not make economic sense. Like, you have to get, in order to make it profitable, the amount of trade volume you have to get from Solana would have to probably like be similar to what we're seeing on Ethereum or Bitcoin today, which, to be honest, is very unlikely to happen anyway, right? And so I'm pessimistic that it would be profitable for the validators to run Solana because it's so fucking expensive to do so. And one of the ideas we've been throwing around just to like solve this issue is this idea of like variable chain security, and that right now everybody who runs a node runs a copy of all the chains, right? BSC and AVAX and Doge and Bitcoin and whatever else. Everybody runs everything, in other words, right? Which means the income that's being made from each individual chain is being split, more or less equally relative to bond size to all the validators, right? So if it takes, let's say it cost $1,000 to run the BSC daemon, for example, right? $1,000 per month, and we were making $50,000 in fees that are going to the node operators from BSC, but we have 105 validators. So collectively speaking, we're spending $105,000 per month to support this particular chain. Yet it's only bringing in $50,000 of revenue per month, or whatever the hell the number is. And so like it doesn't make much sense. You're losing money at that point, right? Which is not so great. The idea of variable chain security is that if it's profitable for half the people to do it, but not profitable for the other ones, well, then half the nodes will run it and half the nodes will not run it. And so the nodes that are running it are profitable, and the ones that are not are still profitable because they're not having the additional cost of that $1,000 a month. And so you create a more open marketplace or a more economic driver that determines what chains we can and cannot support that are economically solvent. And by having a static chain security, which is our current model today, you're very stringent about that, and you're asking a lot for new chains coming in to produce enough income relative to how expensive it is to run that system, to be able to like supply enough liquidity or enough volume, enough trades, enough and so forth and so on, that it's actually viable, economically viable for THORChain to do that. So if you were to do variable chain security, you could support more chains and do so in a way that economically, makes sense. But of course, the downside of that is that you have, less security for this chain and more security for that chain, which creates more complexities to have people understand the risks of becoming an LP in this network or a saver or whatnot. And so that just kind of creates more complexity, cognitive complexity for our community as a whole, and it offers more opportunity. It makes it easier to cyber attack, not just to cyber attack a chain rather than cyber attacking the network as a whole. Because right now, if you want to attack the network, cyber attack the network, you have to do the entire fucking thing, which is obviously very difficult. But if we only had, 10 nodes that are running the Solana node, because that's the number that could support it and still be profitable, then, to cyber attack those 10 nodes, whatever, which would be relatively easier to accomplish financially speaking, and you'd be able to do that in a way that you could do it profitably, because those 10 nodes, and if you got 10 of those nodes, or you got seven of the 10 nodes or whatever, you can you are the single source of truth about the state of Solana. So you could lie all fucking day. You could do fake trades and swaps. You could steal funds, and the network would never know it. You would never get slashed. And if you got if you churned out, you stole all the Solana all the Sol tokens, you get churned out, and we never slashed you because all the money, they think the money's all there, and now we Ragnarok that chain because you're leaving with all your validators, so we don't have enough validators to maintain that chain anymore. So then we Ragnarok the thing, and all the LPs get their money back, except they don't, because the 7 of the 8 my malicious nodes lie and say, yeah, I sent the money back, all the money's back, it's cool. And then I leave with all my rune in my hands, I leave with all the soul in my hands, and I profit pretty massively from that. So it's a very complicated topic for sure, and hopefully I didn't rant on and nobody was understanding a single thing I was saying. I hope that's not the case.
There's also a couple other things you didn't even mention with like EDDSA. So all the chains that are on THORChain today, they use ECDSA encryption, and Solana uses EDDSA. So that's something that work's being started on pretty soon, starting with an audit of the EDDSA TSS library. That's just the threshold signature scheme library for EDDSA. So some preliminary work is being started on to start us moving down that path, because if we do eventually integrate Solana, which seems like, especially with a Li.Fi integration somewhere over the horizon, it seems like it'd be, we need to figure out a way to get there, obviously, but it seems like it'd be a good way to go. The base level step is to get the EDDSA support ready, and then we can figure out things like, costs, or, variable chain security, or whether we use Tiny Dancer, Light Client, or something whatever the end solution is. There's still preliminary work that has to be done to even thinking about supporting it. So it's not, even if we're all right, let's do it tomorrow, we couldn't do it tomorrow because the EDDSA TSS isn't recently audited, and not battle tested in that way. So I would think it'd be something, if it does, I would think it's on the horizon. I would hope it's on the horizon. It's something I would like to see, but maybe towards the end of the first half next year, or later than that. So it's not something that could happen, tomorrow or next month.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work.
Cool. Gray.
What's up? Yeah. Thank you guys for a very good conversation. I'm sure a lot of us are learning a lot. My question is regarding to regulation, because we know it's coming. They're snapping the heads off all centralized exchanges, and definitely the next round is going to be DEXs, which THORChain is part of this. What are you guys, what have you prepared? Or I would rather say, what is the legal infrastructure or framework of this project? And what are you preparing to do when they start coming for centralized, decentralized exchanges and KYC and other restrictions that would definitely come to play?
Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated topic. The short answer is I don't know. Like the short answer is that the government gets to dictate what the regulatory requirements are, right? It's their system. They can get to say whatever the hell they just want to say, and we just have the ability to litigate that as a community, to be able to litigate that if we feel like it's government overreach or blah blah blah, or unjust or undue blah blah blah. And to be honest, I'm down to doing that. Like I'm totally down to, if the government has some pithy idea about what we're doing and what we should be doing and blah blah blah, whatever that might be. I'm totally down to being a complete pain in their fucking necks, and going through the difficult and long process and expensive process to litigate such things, right? If there's reasonable ground that we can stand on, then I am personally totally happy to do that, right? But in the end, like it's up to them to decide what they want to do, and they write the laws, and they can do what the fuck they want, and they can implement whatever they want. And the idea is that the network is sufficiently decentralized that it's overtly too complex or too difficult to really be able to do to stop it, right? And same thing with Bitcoin and everything else out there. Governments have tried to stop Bitcoin; they have not been able to do it. So yes, and to be honest, I don't think any government has ever been successful at shutting down any peer-to-peer network that is properly decentralized, right? Like it's never been the case that any government has been able to stop a properly decentralized peer-to-peer network. So for us, we have to just lean on our cryptography and our decentralization kind of attributes to protect the network from such government overreach. Great. Does that make sense, or any response?
Oh, yeah, that helps. But have you so far been approached by any government institutions asking any questions about how you work, or maybe you had to submit any kind of information that they may need? Because I do know that this is how they operate. They have done with other companies, but mostly centralized ones. I just don't know how it works with decentralized ones at this point.
How do I answer this question? This is a tricky question to answer.
Sounds like they made you to sign it some kind of NDA already.
Um, I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest with you. I'm not sure what I am or am able to say on this topic. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I think that says everything.
Cool. Brought up M and Equinox. What's up?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a question about it's relating to marketing, Chad B's favorite topic. I'm sure you guys are familiar with tradingview.com, the leading financial data provider in the retail space. There you have two sections. You have traditional finance and then you have crypto. If you choose crypto, you can choose between centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. And I would like to see THORChain providing data so I can see see all the prices for Rune, for all the pools that THORChain has. I'd like to see them on tradingview.com because
Yeah, do you have a contact there or anything like that? I'd love to get in touch with them
well, it's
and see what we can do. But
I
yeah,
think it's pretty easy because Trader Joe, PancakeSwap, SushiSwap, Uniswap, and a handful of other dexes I haven't even heard about. And now that THORChain is, I mean, top 3 volume-wise among dexes, I think it's very important to be being there. Can you imagine, hundreds of thousands of crypto enthusiasts are spending hours a day on tradingview.com. So it's just about being visible where the enthusiasts are spending hours a day, It's free.
cool, man. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. I'll look into that.
Sure, thanks. And by the way, much of credit to you guys for your guys' works. I mean, I've been listening on these spaces for almost 2 years, and during the bear market, you're always happy and enthusiastic and all these kind of things. I mean, room price goes from 20 to sub 1, and you're still there, enthusiastic and building and pushing. So a lot of credits to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I probably say this every week, but like honestly, it's so hard to be pessimistic. Even when price was down, it's like it never felt like anything was down because we just had such product market fit and just kept building something that we knew is like really important to the space. So like, thanks for coming on and listening, and obviously to everyone that listens to these things.
It's been very interesting because you have THORChain is among a handful of other projects that has seen like the fundamentals at all-time high and the token price at all-time low at one like say 3-4 months ago. So it's been very, very, very interesting to see that eventually the market catches up.
Cool, thanks,
Thanks,
man.
bye.
Em, you there?
Oh yeah. I was just kind of wondering about your thoughts of the future team or teams of THORChain, or will it ever just be a complete machine that just goes on running forever without any more doxed people needing to work on it at all?
You're talking about ossification, I guess, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, Chad B, do you plan to never retire and like until the day you die be working on protocol?
No, I do not plan that. We've always kind of had the mentality of like what we call planned obsolescence and so forth and so on. And actually, I would like to see Nine Realms to do planned obsolescence as well at some point into the future when it makes sense to do so, which is definitely not now. I started the process to do planned obsolescence earlier this year, and I was kind of leaning on Nine Realms to kind of pick up the slack and whatnot. And I started to work on a new project called Archeo, which I'm still trying to get that done. But some things kind of happened that I wasn't really quite happy about, and some things I really wanted to see happen that wasn't going to arrive, and I just kind of wasn't very happy about the direction of the project, and so that kind of forced me to come back to the fold of this THORChain land and kind of go back full time on this project and help get things done, like streaming swaps, for example. Right, that came in part because I came back to the project. I had the concept for doing it, coded it, implemented it, pushed it through, got everybody to approve it, review it, blah blah blah, and it finally got pushed through, and with then the project's doing well in part to that, right? So there's some more things I want to see happen. I do want to see some optimization things happen. I want to see limit orders to happen, maybe perpetuals, possibly, maybe. I'm not really sure yet. But there's a handful of things I want to do, but there is not an infinite thing of things I want to do, right? To me, it's just like I want this network to be fully realized in terms of the vision of what it can be, becoming like the largest exchange in the world, crypto exchange in the world. And if there's anything that is a block or a barrier to accomplishing that goal, I want to make sure that thing gets done, right? Either by me or by Nine Realms or somebody. But I want to make sure that like there's somebody, kind of inside the dev team that kind of has that long-term viewpoint, and is, will push hard for whatever things we need to change about the protocol to ensure we get to that place. For example, right now I've been working on batch outbound transactions, so we can sign a single Bitcoin transaction that has 100 transfers within that single transaction, which allows our TSS to scale more or less infinitely, right? And so we could earlier there's a guy on the stage asking me about scalability. These are one of the things of scalability that I would like to solve, right? And this would become a barrier to becoming a larger exchange than Binance. It's because TSS can't sign that many outbound transactions, per hour or per day or whatever the hell the thing is. And so, if I see anything that is problematic that would block us to becoming the biggest thing in crypto, then I will focus on that thing and get that thing done, whatever the hell that is. That being said, I am a serial entrepreneur by nature. I've built many companies in Silicon Valley, Web 2 world. And I've done, one, and I'm working on Arcu as well, in Web3 world. And I also have more ideas in the back of my head that I've written down and thought about very deeply, over the last few years, in fact, that I still want to build, right? That are a credit not just for crypto people, but for people outside of crypto. How can we use crypto to solve problems outside of crypto? Like that's kind of one of the things that nobody's fucking doing in our industry right now. And I have an idea or two around that idea, and I can't build those things and work on THORChain full time. So I'm kind of in this weird kind of tough spot of like, I want THORChain to become, what I want it to become, and I need to put in the time and the effort to make sure that it gets to that place. But also I can't, work more than 24 hours in a day in a sense, and so I can't do all the things that I want to do or build all the things I want to build or create tokens and networks, whatever, that attribute and create things of value and better society in one form or another. So it's definitely like I don't see myself retiring as a person anytime soon. I'm 41 years old today, and and I should be retiring in my 60s or 70s, but probably that won't fucking happen unless my brain is broken or something, or my fingers are broken or whatever. So I do see myself long term aligned to THORChain and making sure that I stick around for however long I need to stick around to make sure that it can achieve the goal that I want to see happen. Is that a decent enough answer?
Yeah, definitely. I remember from my time at Shapeshift when we went from a company to a DAO, kind of the message that Eric kind of, in between the lines is that we didn't just want to be a DAO in name and the same people. The idea was to rotate out and kind of, even though there would always be someone there working on it, it wouldn't necessarily be the same people at the same time forever. So yeah, I like to think of it as like you're going to need maintenance at the very least if it's going to last 20 years. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
good just not to have as much evangelist you've been for the project. We'll definitely miss you if and when you leave. Um, but I think it's the better to really prove out like that this protocol exists without any single person's control or
Yeah, I would say that like I agree with Shapeshift's viewpoint or Eric's viewpoint on this. Like my skills, you don't necessarily need me on this project as a straight up developer. There's lots of people in the world who are developers. You can hire them off the fucking street in a matter of speaking, right? Maybe you might need me for like the more complex or features because it's very complex and it integrates a lot of other things and other like mechanisms of economics, but at a high level, like you don't necessarily need me as a developer, especially once we've shipped all the major features. Once we've gotten like limit orders out and memoless transactions and maybe perpetuals and like and when we got a more or less a feature freeze, and at that point, all the changes after that point are just like, okay, how do we scale up TSS? How do we scale up this? How do we, reduce the observations on the network by 100 or 400x? Like blah, 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 these kind of things. You might need my input of how to get there, or I'll just have some ideas of how to get there, right? And there's other people who have ideas as well, of course. But over time, like my skill set, my knowledge, my abilities become less and less important or less and less valuable for the protocol. And you just need people like the Nymos people that have been doing for a while to help keep things afloat and fix mainnet bugs that show up from time to time or whatever the hell it is. And that they're quite capable of doing as they've been doing for a while. But Nine Realms has not been able to put enough time as what I would like to see onto the core protocol to see it advance to the next stage, to see it to address the issues, the longer time frame issues that are kind of seeping that we're kind of seeing on the edges in a sense, and they're more focused on like the here and the now, like the production issues that we had last week or whatever it is, and not about like, oh, how do we do like batch outbound signings? It's something that like the team, not everybody on that team kind of agrees with that mentality, though we need it at all, even though I can clearly tell you, as I see, light in the sky, that we definitely are going to need that at some point into the future, for sure. So, but once we get all these kind of scalability things fixed, which that's being addressed now, and we'll continue to tweak things as we need to, and get those major features landed, like the limit orders, for example, and what else, is kind of planned, then my need on the requirement, my involvement in this project reduces, as long as we have the right team that is still maintaining the project and getting things done and that kind of stuff. So as soon as I feel like my skill sets aren't needed anymore, and there's a team that still remains, or devs that are still remaining that can properly maintain the protocol and not drive it into the fucking ground, then that's the point that I would like to leave the project and start working on Archeo or other things that I would like to build and construct.
And you can always leave new features for forks of THORChain, right? Or would you be hesitant about trusting different people working on similar projects, claiming similar things?
Yeah, we talked about there was a contentious time for a while back where it was really kind of like the OGs versus Nine Realms kind of situation, where the OGs, like myself and Lena, for example, wanted to do savers, and we wanted to do lending, we wanted to do the algo stable, and we wanted to do these things that are not the AMM. And a lot of people on the Nine Realms side kind of just wanted it to be just an AMM, like just have it be the white paper, and let's not add on these extra capabilities on top of the protocol. And that was just like a very different viewpoint. Like neither one was right or wrong necessarily, but there were just like two different viewpoints of what we see the future of this protocol to do, right? And there was a contentious time for a while there that like myself and others were kind of considering of well, maybe we'll leave THORChain alone, and then we're gonna fork it and create a new THORChain that will be more kind of like bleeding edge in a sense. And that protocol was going to be called Alpine, by the way, if you were just curious about it. And that obviously never came to fruition. The team could kind of align to get aligned and see and head down the same road, so that was never really needed. But there was a time when that was a real possibility. We were really considering of actually forking THORChain and creating a second network that would be run by myself and the other OG people, and building a new team around that. But that never happened, of course.
Thanks. I'll let other people talk.
Yeah, so just like adding on to this a little bit, because I think it's an interesting conversation. Like Pluto's talked about this a lot, just like getting to the point of ossification. And like obviously we're not there yet because there's still features yet to be shipped. But like as the protocol becomes more and more complete, then the goal like slowly shifts more and more towards ossification and getting things to the point where there's no new major features being added to the chain, and pretty much everything that is going out is just fixes and optimizations and just kind of tuning the engine, because the more and more you keep messing with, such a machine like THORChain, the higher risk that you will irrecoverably like fuck something up. And it is, obviously we don't want to lose this beautiful, beautiful thing that we got here. So like, it's not like there's going to be, I don't think there's going to be active like new features developed on THORChain forever, because at some point there's, there's risk to everything that's added. And the worst thing that we could possibly do is somehow, mess this whole thing up. So like everything trends towards the direction of ossification, and obviously super glad that obviously Chad, you're here to help push it forward, and like get new features out, because obviously we're not done in the vision, but there's still a lot of optimizations and like little fixes and things that are going to need to be going out. And I'm not even sure that this, like, I mean, I'm sure that updates will become less frequent in the future. I'm talking like, years in the future. But I mean, I still think that the day-to-day management and the protocol, like, nodes are still going to need to, update their infrastructure. They're going to need to think about adding new chains. So it's like, it's difficult to say that, things will ever stop, because things are always going to be changing. And, the nodes are going to have to adapt to whatever is going on in that moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It'll never completely ossify, because we'll always be adding new chains or removing chains or dealing with scenarios or situations that are external to us that affects us in one form or another. But and I also agree with what Kyle was saying about there's going to come a time when we don't really want to add many new features, right? Like there'll always be a time you can always add more features. There's never like a shortage of things that you could add. The question is the time it takes to do so, is the maintenance that it takes to do so, is the risk that it takes to do so worth the ROI that you get from that feature? That's what really kind of how I think about it, right? What is the amount of work required? What is the amount of risk that's required? And what is the amount of ROI that you get back from that feature? And that's like how I think about, whether or not we want to add this feature A or feature B. And from my opinion, like everything we've added thus far has been like, relatively speaking, not a lot of work. And, we can keep the risk at a minimum just by, scaling the feature up very slowly over time and not kind of putting too much in one place at one time. But then it has like very significant effects to what we can do as a protocol, right? Like an algo stable would be massive for the protocol in terms of what it can do for it. Lending can do amazing things for it. Limit orders can create instantaneous streaming swaps. Like these things are not like small little like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like THORnames to me is like doesn't have a high ROI for it. It's not a strong demand for, doesn't create a strong demand for Rune. It's nice because it helps, our partners to be able to have like shorter memos, which is good, right? It has value to it for sure, but it's not like going to be the thing that like, it's not going to replace, what's it called? Unstoppable domains or something like this. Like it's not going to become this like major thing. And so like, we could talk about so many features we could add to the protocol, but to be honest, the vast majority of them aren't going to be like that worthwhile, right? An example of that would be like a secondary marketplace for THORnames. People have been asking me for this for like a long time. Like I get poke about it every once in a long while, and then they feel the feature has been rugged from them, and they're all upset about it and whatever else. But like the reality is like people aren't really buying THORnames outside of a handful of people who are integrating with swaps. It's not like a hugely demanded feature, and a secondary market for it is even less demanded than the primary market. So it's just not worth the time or effort. And so after I get done with like the major things that I want to get done over the next like 6-ish months or whatever the hell the time frame is, with the exception of maybe perpetuals, I just don't see what else we could do that would be of high value to the protocol other than just like tweaks and improvements to like small changes to make things more performant or optimized, right? So I do think probably within the next 6 months or maybe 12 months that the feature set of THORChain will probably be ossified, and we won't be adding any new major features that I can think of. And at that point, it's just about making that thing mature as fuck and reliable as fuck, and have it be just like butter, just moving so smoothly and trading huge volumes like it's nothing.
To answer a question in the comments, yeah, MemoList is still planned. That's a Q1 type thing. Like right now, it's just optimizations and things around, like batched outbounds and TSS and things like that. So, new features are coming. Q1. It's gonna be quiet Q4 here just to get the engine under control, essentially. Also, Finblue, what's up?
Hey, I was wondering, Chad, on the last Spaces when we were talking about integrations, you had mentioned that something huge was coming, but you couldn't say what it was. I was just curious if that was the Li.Fi thing from earlier today, or maybe the Ledger was alluding to a deeper integration in a tweet, or is it possibly something else?
Well, both of those were in my mind, and there's more than that. Ones that are just as big, if not larger, than those that we're in conversations with. So there's much more coming down than just those two, but those two are obviously on their own right quite massive.
Great, I'm all tingly inside. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. And yeah, just keep in mind, everybody, like the sales cycle for these integrations is so long. Yeah, I'm not talking just like like they announce it and then they can ship it out in like a couple of months. For the trust wallet integration, that was 14 to 18 months of from talking to the team to finally shipped in all of their trust wallet versions. So it's definitely no small lift to get. The bigger the company, the slower moving it is, and that goes with how many users they have. As that scales up, the longer it takes to ship these things. So like, just because someone announces something is, even if they say it's around the corner, like stuff takes a lot of time, especially when you're dealing with a ton of users and just like slow moving companies that want to be safe and risk averse. And just keep that in mind. Like this stuff takes like a huge amount of time to actually get moving for the ones that really matter. So yeah, huge stuff coming. Obviously, Li.Fi, Ledger being two giants in this space.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's not even just like those integrations, like in the sense of like new DEX integrations or wall integrations. There are conversations that we are having as a team with large institutions who want to like earn yield, right? And so they want to deploy either as an LP or as a saver, and they want to deploy, not $500,000, but tens of millions of dollars talking about, right? And so like that hasn't happened yet, and I can't go into detail, of course, for obvious reasons, but like there are a lot of people who are kind of different institutions and different companies that are very intrigued by what it is that we're doing as a community, and they want to participate as a wallet or as a DEX or just provide liquidity or whatever. And some of these things fall out, and it doesn't actually happen. And sometimes that does happen, and it's really hard to know, along that process which direction it's going. And sometimes everything's going great, and then they just fucking, ghost you, more or less, which is just like this weird thing that does happen sometimes. And you try to like rekindle some conversations, and it just ain't gonna work. And maybe it's gonna work later on. Who the fuck knows? But that's why, partially, I don't want to go into details about like, who we're talking to, is because they don't want to be kind of doxxed in that way without getting further down the road. And B is I don't want to like start telling people, oh, we get this big deal with this big giant wall, and well, this is happening downstream, and then 3 months later it falls through for one reason or another. Like I don't want to get people's hope up about some integration until it's more like we know with a very high degree of certainty that it's going to happen.
Right. That's why we don't. That's why, I mean, the proper practice is just not say anything until they announce that they're doing a THORChain integration. That's just the best way to do it, because if they say it, then that's totally fine. But it's not right for us to announce it for people that could be integrating THORChain for us to say that they're doing it. So that's kind of the tack that we've taken. It's the right way to do it. So
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've even had like contracts like being signed, right, for swap things, and it's like, oh yeah, more changes, like things need to change like this way or that way. And yeah, it's just month-long processes that are just like, I never would have thought it would take that long to do all this stuff, but I'm kind of in the middle of it right now, and yeah, it's just like it's slow moving with the big ships, but they're going to bring a huge amount of visibility and swap volume and stuff like that.
Yeah, those big ships have like different concerns too, right? They have like legality concerns that nobody else really gives a shit about, right? And how are we going to get this to happen and that to happen? And I can't go into detail, but like it's so hard to move them because you have to get so many people to agree to it within their own institution, and just getting the door in the door is generally fairly difficult, and then you get the door and you get like one guy in the team to be like big fan of it, and then the other four are cold on the idea, whatever. They need to work them over, and I mean, I think to like just alleviate all their concerns and like, what if this happens and what if that happens and what if the swap goes like this or what if the law changes like this, and you kind of have to go through that process. It's just, as Kyle says, it's just very, time expensive and takes fucking forever. But once those things land and those things come to fruition, like Li.Fi is obviously a very recent example, like the value that it provides to the network and to the community is just like, fucking awesome. It's great. It's how we're going to, beat Uniswap in the end, is just by getting every major wallet and DEX and institution to integrate directly as we can, and then just get all the volume just naturally passing through THORChain instead of Coinbase and Binance.
What's been super cool though is seeing how many people that work at these huge wallets, DEXs, like everything, like everyone in the space. It's crazy to see how many people that work at these places are THORChads and have been like keeping up with it, or just sort of not, or but they all know what's going on. So like it is crazy to see how many people are like paying attention, even though you might not think people pay attention. There's definitely a lot of people that do pay attention. So that it is really cool to see how many THORChads are out there building in the space working on other stuff.
You know what's really funny, and I've noticed this shift, and Cal, I'm wondering if you probably noticed it as well, but like I remember in the early days of like when we first started doing integrations and started having conversations and all these things, that like a large segment of the wallets and DEXs or whatever else we were talking to would have be so confused about the idea of like Bitcoin ETH trades. I don't know. It really struck me as something very unusual or just like non-logical. It's like why would I want to be able to trade between Bitcoin? It's just like this weird fucking mentality that made no fucking sense at all. And then today, I feel like that's not even really a thing anymore. We barely hear people kind of saying that kind of shit anymore, which is great. I'm just like, all right, I don't know what happened over the last year and a half or 2 years, whatever it was, but all right, people got over that silliness, and now they're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, yeah, Bitcoin ETH, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Like you can literally see the narratives kind of like waiting and like waxing and waning. Like they're growing and then they shrink. And right now, the past month, my Telegram inbox has been just like I can't keep up with it anymore. It's kind of crazy. And there's some things that make a lot of sense, and there's a lot of things that really don't make much sense for us to integrate with. So it's obviously the goal is to get in every single big aggregator wallet and DEX, because that's where all the volume is. Then eventually the centralized exchanges start tapping for liquidity. So we're already seeing hints of that happening a bit. So the demand, basically since the beginning of November, the inbound has just been so much, because people are definitely paying attention outside of this little space. You just might not see people talking about it all the time, and I can't blame them for not talking about it all the time. Some people aren't just obsessed with this like we are. Kind of we've been here for a while doing this, but some people are just oh yeah, I mean that's awesome, and yeah, we'll start using those swap services and things like that, and they see the demands on it. Other people get super nerdy about it too, and they're just oh my god, I didn't know you could do this. This is crazy. So we've had plenty of those conversations this month, and anticipating as we just keep outperforming and just having this kind of narrative form, it's just going to increase inbound more and more. And I say this on so many spaces, but as we land bigger integrations, it just makes it easier to land other big integrations. And Trust Wallet was obviously the first domino to fall there, but Trust Wallet falls into Ledger, falls into Li.Fi, falls into everybody else in the space. It only gets easier as there's more and more momentum built up behind the massive tsunami wave. So
I
one
think
big
that last
integration
point
brings more. Yep.
I think that last point is exactly the answer to what you were saying, Chad, of how last bull run everyone was oh well, there's no Bitcoin in DeFi. I don't think there's any demand for that. Like, look at the volume. There's zero. Why would anybody want that? But then as soon as like a few integrations land, and then now that the volume is there and people can see that, oh, of course people do want that, then it's just like the dominoes start to fall and the integrations start to land because of that. So now, like, no one's going to think it's crazy to want native Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's going to be wallets that integrate Bitcoin because of THORChain, because they're like, there's actually some kind of like, interoperability within their own wallet of being able to act as the exchange between, this coin, that coin, revenue source, user acquisition play. Like we're Bitcoin onboarding service at this point. We're the bridge between worlds here. So yeah, I'm sure there will be wallets, like ERC20 only wallets right now that eventually add Bitcoin because they're looking into THORChain.
Yeah, that was one of the funny things, and also infuriating things, is that it's like people would deny that Bitcoiners want DeFi or loans or something like this, or swaps or something like this. And I'm just like, it's like if you had a bucket and inside the bucket was like a mouse, and then you say, hey, this mouse could really use some water, and the guy goes, well, there's no water in there now. There's no demand for water because there's no water in this fucking bucket. And I'd be like, well, it's a fucking mouse. It drinks water. I think it wants water. We should put some water in the fucking bucket. And the guy's like, oh no, well, there's no water in there now. There's no demand for it. I'd just be like, what are we talking about here? How did we get to this conversation? This is
And they
ludicrous.
fill the bucket up with water and drown the mouse.
Then we put some water in, like you start drinking the water. It's like, yeah, I fucking knew they'd drink the water. Because it's a fucking mouse. It wants to drink water. Why is it so fucking hard to understand? Why is your mind fucking blown right now? This is obvious.
That's a legendary analogy. I feel like some memes need to spawn from this.
There was somebody that was talking to me, and I won't mention their name because I don't want to embarrass them. But there was somebody talking to me, and they were like, "Well, we don't need streaming swaps." And I was like, "Well, why is that?" I was like, "Well, the average swap on THORChain is like $10,000, right? Or the like the top 90% or what the fuck the thing was." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he's like, "Well, there's nobody who wants to swap large volumes to THORChain." I'm like, "Well, that's because the fees are really fucking high. That's why nobody does it with $1 million trades to THORChain because the fees are fucking high." It's like, well, we're not seeing anybody trying to swap like large volumes, so it's, there's no demand for it. I'm just like, what's wrong with your head? The entire market is dictated by large volume trades. Like most of the volume of Uniswap, for example, is fucking whales coming through with large fucking trades. Like this is like blatantly obvious. But I was getting kickback from somebody that like, oh, we don't even need deeper pools. Why would we need deeper pools? The pool's deep enough. We don't need any pools to be deeper. I'm just like, are you crazy? What are you thinking? We need the deepest pools we can possibly get. The more deep our pools get, the better price execution. And the deeper the pools get, the more trade volume will just naturally happen. Like trade volume will increase almost in a linear way with the depth of the pools. So yeah, we want deep pools. Of course we want deep pools. We want to give a fucking mouse some water. Of course we want to give the mouse fucking water because it drinks goddamn water. What's the goddamn argue about here? Let's fucking move forward. Some deep ass fucking pools. Let's get some streaming swaps going. Stop with your nonsense and let's fucking move forward. It was so ludicrous.
Yo, Creamy.
What's up, guys? Why isn't Rune at 10 yet? I'm just kidding. I hope soon though. But I just wanted to say the bankless YouTube was really good. I like that. Thanks, Chad. You did a good job on that. I had fun watching that, and Eric too. I don't think he's on here, but I thought that was long awaited. So that was fun to watch. One question that I had was longer term, and I don't know if this has been addressed. I just got on like 10 minutes ago or prior. I haven't really been on one of these in a while, but is there a plan long term to be able to post Rune as collateral from a lending perspective to borrow against?
Not really. And the reason why that is because when you open a loan, the value that the protocol gets from that process of opening a loan gets from the buying, the burning of the Rune token. Like it just kind of causes the Rune price to go up. Like it creates an inherent buy pressure and burn pressure on the asset, which makes the token price goes up, which makes the pools more deep, which makes the bond more increases security of the network, which increases the trade volume, blah, 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 all these things. So if you use Rune as the collateral, you're not doing the buy part. Buy part's already occurred, right? You already own the Rune you want. You already bought it, right? And all you're getting from it is the burn pressure. And the burn pressure is like, you don't really get a lot of value in terms of the Rune, like the effects on the Rune price from the burn pressure, unless you get to a place where you're like burning 20% or 30% or something really significant in the supply. You're really not pushing the price all that much. What's actually pushing the price more than that is actually the buying of the Rune. Like it actually has more effect on the Rune price than the actual burning of it. And then beyond that, it's actually the cognitive thing that happens in the psychology of the market that says, oh, hey, Rune is ultrasound money, quote unquote, right? Not that I'm saying that it actually is, but I'm just like making an analogy to Ethereum. Rune is ultrasound money. It's a better investment. I'm buying ETH or Rune or whatever because it's going to do that. So like that just creates a psychological element. So the reason why we don't really use Rune as a collateral asset is because it doesn't really provide as much value to the protocol as a whole, right? But on the other side, it would create probably sell pressure on the Rune asset, if anything, just because you already had the buy pressures already occurred. You already hold the Rune you want. You burn it out of existence, and then you mint back half of it or 1/3 of it or some number, and then you sell that Rune into USDC, into Bitcoin, into something else. And so you're actually creating a net negative on the protocol when you use Rune as a collateral versus when you use Bitcoin. And in the end, what we're really trying to do as a protocol, like in general, is that we want everybody to come to us, right? We want somebody to sell their Bitcoin, right, and buy Rune. We want people to sell their Ethereum and buy Rune. We want them to sell their Solana and buy Rune, or whatever the asset might be. And the more we do that, that's how you change the market cap of Rune, right? Is you get people to sell one asset and acquire Rune, and you're actually reducing the market cap of Bitcoin when you do this, and you're kind of migrating or transferring the market cap of Bitcoin into Rune, into our network, when you actually open up a loan, right? And that's what we want to do. We want more capital. We want exogenous capital from outside the network to come, to be sold and then bought our own asset into the network, which is why lending is what lending is. That's what drives value into the actual ecosystem itself, which obviously drives value into the Rune asset itself, inherently so. That's the reason why we don't really use Rune as a collateral asset. And right now it's just basically Bitcoin and ETH. Even if we were to open up lending up for like Doge or something like this, like nobody really gives a shit in the Doge land. The amount of Doge loans that we open are, not going to be very much relative to what Bitcoin and ETH is doing anyway. So
yeah, that makes sense. I guess what you were saying at first, yeah, I didn't really think of it that way, but that makes sense. On the flip side, let's say longer term, obviously, because I don't think lending is big enough for it to make a dent now. But since people that are taking out loans, and I'm sure this has been asked before, but it just came into my mind, it creates, obviously buy pressure on the Rune side and burn pressure, which helps Rune price. Obviously, that could go the other way, right? Like, if people are rushing to close out their loans and things like that, do you think there's a substantial risk of, obviously Rune price will go down, but is there a chance of any sort of God forbid I say Terra, but is there a chance of a death spiral type situation where everyone's rushing to close loans and Rune just gets absolutely eviscerated?
Yeah, well, so in the current moment, the clean answer to that is no. And the reason why I say that is because the cap of the lending is I think 1% or something like this of the market cap of Rune. So there's not really a Terra-like scenario that can happen because, the most you can mint back is 1%, which is fucking nothing. In comparison to Terra, there was the Luna market cap was, I'm probably going to get these numbers wrong, and I apologize for getting them incorrectly. It's been a long fucking time, but they were the market cap of Luna itself was, I think, I want to say 40 billion-ish or something like this.
I think that's what it was.
And UST was 50 or 60 or some larger number. So that's a lot of the market cap of UST was larger than that of Luna. And that creates a lot of risk, right? That causes a lot of panic. That creates a lot of death spirals, right? Because of this thing. And everybody who sells their UST into Luna, you are increasing the amount of pressure or risk to the remaining people who remainingly hold their UST. And so it creates more, that's why it creates a death spiral. Because a death spiral happens, in my opinion, when there's pressure on you as a holder of an asset or whatever to do a specific action, and when you uphold that when you do the thing that you're pressured to do, and like sell your USD to Luna, for example, if that increases pressure for the remaining people, that's a death spiral. If it decreases the remaining pressure on the remaining people, that's not a death spiral, right? It'll create reflexivity for sure, and you might have a couple of loops around the spiral, but you're going to head towards the center and stop. Whereas a death spiral spirals outward for infinity, right? And you'll go to fucking zero at that point.
Yeah, so wrong word.
Right. So in its current state, no, it's capped. It has very little risk to the protocol, blah, blah, blah. And at this point, we're just like throwing the idea out there into the open market, seeing how things react, see how people behave, see if our economic assumptions, market psychology assumptions are correct or incorrect with this new novel and experimental concept and idea. And we're just kind of letting it kind of run for a while and see how it works. So thus far, I've been quite happy, actually. I've actually been pleasantly surprised of how well it's performed in the last few months. That doesn't mean that it's working. I mean, it's been working until now. It doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow or in 6 months from now or 12 months from now. So that's why I always said that we don't know if lending actually works, the design actually works, until we've gone through a full bear and a full bull. So there's very little risk for that sense. But if you change the cap and you say, you know what, we're going to remove the cap, hypothetically. We're going to remove the cap. And then, lending goes fucking bananas. Everybody's, depositing their Bitcoin because they want this, like, no liquidation, blah, system, whatever it is. And it goes crazy. Now, and you get that same top-heavy situation where the value of the derived assets, of the collateral, is worth more than the value of Rune. That's what we call being top-heavy. Internally, we call it being top-heavy. And we don't like that idea. That's just too much risk, too much danger, not very good. Bad idea. That's what Terra did, right?
Yeah.
And the way that one idea that we've been kind of floating around just to protect us from that scenario is that we can put a cap on the total percentage. So we got 500 million Rune in total supply, not circulating, but total supply. And we can put a cap. Let's just call it to make the number simple. We'll just call it 10% for now. And so that just means that no more than 50 million Rune is acquirable back to be minted back. No more than 50 million Rune, right? So if we burnt 50 million Rune, whatever, to open all these loans, and then the Rune price goes down relative to those collateral, well, now you get a problem because we can only mint back 50, but we actually need 60 million or 70 million or some higher number. And so the solution to this, to help us to not spiral to some crazy fucking scenario, is to say, we only actually have 50. We're only going to do 50, right? So if we need 52, that means that when you close your loan, your collateral is going to get some kind of haircut, right? Like a 1% haircut or a 2% haircut, depending upon how far beyond that 50 number that we are, right? And so part of the idea of this is that, yes, it caps how much loans can be opened, which we don't want to go too fucking heavy and crazy and be irresponsible in this context. But we also want to make sure that, like, if things start going south in the sense that Rune is going down and we kind of approach that 50 million, number, more or less, that's going to be minted back if loans were to be closed right now. If we were to do that, we want people to start leaving now, not leaving tomorrow, but leaving now, right? And the act of leaving, right, because of the haircut, rebalances things back to a state of balance. So if you were to have a terror-like a race to the door, situation with all the loans, you're only going to mint back to 50 million. No matter how many people leave, no matter what the fuck happens, no matter what the price of fucking Rune is, it don't fucking matter. The network will only take on 50 million Rune of being mint back into supply, and because of that, it de-risks the protocol and it applies the risk to the lender, right? Saying that if you want to close your loan, go ahead and close it, but you're going to get a little bit of a haircut when you do it. Or you can just sit tight, don't fucking do anything, wait for the market to return, wait for Rune's price to go back up again tomorrow or whatever it is, and get back 100% of your collateral. Either or of those two things. So that's like a way for us to, like, basically place the risk not on the protocol, but place the risk on the actual lenders themselves, the borrowers themselves. Which, to be fair, it's not too much to ask, considering that what we're giving them already is pretty fucking sexy. and pretty, amazing compared to everything else in the industry. So it doesn't. I'm not too, hurt by it in some sense, right? If we can put the CR min and max at 200%, so it's a 50% LTV in all cases and scenarios, that will cause this thing to really kind of pop off. I think just because it's better than every other loan in the entire industry. Objectively, so that's true. Other than protocol risk. And then the last thing they're like to be worried about is just kind of this scenario where you get a haircut, right? You're not going to get liquidated. You're not going to lose all your money and it's gone forever, blah, blah, blah. No, you can get a haircut if you choose to get a haircut, or you can just kind of sit back, don't close your loan, wait until tomorrow when the prices return, or 6 months from now, or whatever the number is, and get 100% of your loan back. Up to you.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks for clarifying that. All right, I'll hop off. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Greeny.
Hey guys, can I ask a question? Is that all right?
Yep, shoot.
All right, awesome, great, thank you. By the way, this has been one of my favorite spaces. I'm learning so much. I love your project deeply. I just had a question about I am by far I'm not a technical person whatsoever. But if I wanted to become a validator, I mean, from my understanding, a THORChain validator, you have to run all the nodes of all the other chains, or are you able to say, hey, I'm only going to run 3 or 4? Or forgive me if that sounds like a stupid question, but what
No,
would it
we were actually
cost?
just talking.
What would it cost for me to become a validator if I wanted to?
Yeah, we're talking about this earlier, actually. But yes, you have to run all of the nodes, and the cost is you first have to buy enough rune to churn in, which is probably around 800,000 or 900,000 runes. So get your rune or some friends' rune to contribute or whatever, or some community members. Excuse me. I need to run all the nodes and all the full nodes, whatever. That probably costs you, depending upon how you choose to run it. It can cost you anywhere from $5,000 or $6,000 a month to an upfront cost of like $10,000 or $15,000 in upfront cost of physical boxes, and then running in your mom's basement for real cheap, of course, and then have almost no operational cost, or very little, I should say. So you can do it however you want, and so even on AWS, you can reduce your costs if you use reserve instances instead of spot instances, and pay significantly less in your AWS costs, or your Google Compute, or your DigitalOcean and whatnot. So it ranges. The cost really isn't the operation of the node itself. That's just not that much money compared to the amount of room that you got to get kind of put together which is right now is like you're talking about $5 or $6 million worth of room that's required to even run a validator today.
Okay, and what is the maximum number of nodes that what is the planned future?
Right now, it's hard coded at 120 validators in total. That number is just a fucking number. It can be increased, not arbitrarily. You can increase it to probably like 200 or maybe even 250 without much issue. Although you might start to see the block times start to slip and get a little bit slower in the block times. Whether or not we want to do that or not is obviously a debated topic, and people can have different viewpoints. Right now, like excuse me, because the bond is so high right now relative to the LPs, I don't really see a need to increase it above that 120. To be honest with you, it would be probably, if anything, be counterproductive for the protocol. I don't think validators would vote to allow more bond to come in, because the more bond that comes in for validators, the more not losses, but the less rewards they earn, right? So if there's 80 nodes versus 120 nodes, they much rather be one of the 80 rather than one of the 120, because they're going to make more money on the one of 80 than they would on the one of 20. So it doesn't make sense to me to increase beyond the point that it already is, unless we get to a place where like the pools get really full. You get huge LPs coming in, these whale LPs coming in. Maybe it makes sense at that point, possibly. But until that happens, I'd say keep it where it is.
Yeah, and if you don't have enough room to bond your own node, which is obviously like a lot, what you should look into is providing bond for someone else's node. And there's some in the THORChain developer Discord. There's a channel where you can connect with community members who run nodes, and you can become a bond provider. That's what a lot of people in the community do, because you can basically pool together capital between groups of people and all contribute towards that 800K number that you pretty much need to keep churning at this time. So that's a really good option if you're looking to earn some yield on the bond side, but don't have the technical chops to run a THORChain full node and keep up with all that, and especially if you don't have the room to churn in.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot. And then just lastly, just a bit of a personal question, but this has been an amazing 2 months for the THORChain project. What have you guys learned, and what has surprised you?
What have we learned in the last 2 months? What has surprised me? Well, it surprised me how effective streaming swaps was for product market fit. That was more. When we first talked about streaming swaps, one of the legitimate concerns around the feature was that, okay, we're going to take less income, right? Less system income from these trades or swaps, because we're going to give them better price execution, and which means LPs and nodes will earn less income, which is obviously not necessarily a good thing. But we wanted to kind of switch the strategy to be more like an early stage startup. You don't really care about money per se. You just care about market share. You care about adoption. You care about brand recognition. You care about these things. But there was a concern that the yield of the nodes and the LPs would come down too much, right? And it would be wouldn't be very profitable, and it would just cause some issues in that context. We knew hypothetically that if you did start to see mega whales trading, $1 million trades or $5 million trades or whatever, that would counteract that concern. But obviously, we didn't really have a very good sense of if that would happen or not, or how often it would happen or whatnot. And to my surprise and to my pleasure, that actually did happen. We saw huge trades, massive fucking trades come through the protocol. And to this day, we still have, I think, around 50%, maybe a little bit more now, of the system income is coming from LPs as it is for rather than block rewards. And that's about the same what it was before we put in streaming swaps. But the difference is that the room price today is at $6 versus it was $1 at the time that we implemented streaming swaps. And why is that important? Well, the value of the block rewards are now 6 times more valuable than they were 3 months ago, right? Because the price is obviously 6x since then. So to maintain a 50% value in terms of the system income of the swap fees and the block rewards, even though we saw a 6x price change in Rune, that's pretty surprising. I was pretty shocked by that. I was expecting that number to go down to be 80% block rewards and 20% swap fees. I was literally expecting that number to drop, and I was a little bit concerned about it, to be honest. But that didn't happen. It actually stayed where it was, despite even the price change happening and 6xing over a short period of time. That's pretty remarkable. I was pretty surprised at that. I don't know if Thoreau or Cow have other ideas that they had in mind.
Not immediately. That's a good one. Yeah, just seeing the fees from that, more than compensating for the fee. Because I remember bringing that up on Spaces, probably when you first brought up streaming swaps. I was like, but doesn't that mean there's just way less fees for the LPs and the nodes? But instead, having it be cheaper has just made the volume so much higher. Yeah, so that's a big one. Thinking if anything else comes to mind, but anything for you, Cal?
Well, I guess how quickly perspectives change, because people were definitely in the summer, people were like, oh yeah, this isn't going anywhere, or whatever. People were just getting pissed off for no reason, and there was never any reason to be like, oh yeah, we're not gaining any momentum or adoption, in my opinion at least. But price action lags, based on what's actually happening. So it is kind of sad to see that so many people just care about rune price goes up, so then people care more, and it is kind of disappointing to know that that's kind of the reality. But I guess it's true. So like we outperform everything, and then people start paying attention, and then we start getting a ton of inbound for integrations. I can't say that's a bad result at all, obviously, but you know, it's never been a bad day in these spaces. It's always been like, all right, well, things are always looking up, pretty much since we started doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you go back and you listen to all the spaces that you and I have been doing for forever here, and if you go back all the spaces and just re-listen to them over like every week for the last year, like we keep on talking about how fundamentally what we've done or what we've accomplished and how how we reached new highs in terms of KPIs, not in terms of price, but in terms of KPIs, like the important shit, the fundamentals, the things that actually show and prove actual economic a contribution to the world or economic activity and that kind of thing. And like people don't really care about that, which is some kind of a funny thing because that's the real shit. That's the real fucking data that you really want to be paying attention to is like where are the actual real data of this, and not just like how many people are pumping the price or whatever, because that can be manipulated easily. But the actual fundamentals of the protocol have been doing extremely well for a very long period of time, and you can listen through all these spaces and find examples of that happening throughout the last year or so. And we've been killing it as a fucking protocol. Like objectively, we've been killing it as a protocol. And now that the price is finally kind of moving with the KPIs, to Kyle's point, yeah, we finally got like integrations coming into us and asking to be integrated in one form or another, or integrations even integrating themselves. We had our first SEX, for example. We integrate with THORChain and do some of their back end trading and swaps. Like that's pretty. It's kind of funny, but that's just how the way the market works. I guess they care about the price and they care a little about the fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people are here anyway. I mean, it is just it is what it is, but it brings a lot of attention to like what we're doing right now. So I don't think it's like an objectively bad thing, just an observation. But it's been great to see so much attention being paid over the past month, and I think things are going to keep trending in that direction, or at least I hope so. And as just adoption increases, like the more integrations. That's like my whole focus, just integrations, because as we just land in all these major apps, aggregators, dexes, wallets, just becomes that much more like essential core infrastructure. Then more Bitcoin liquidity keeps just being sucked into THORChain, and then we just we eventually reach this critical mass where we do set the Bitcoin price for the entire world. And I have no doubt that day is coming. And I'm sure people that are here like today, can see like some glimpses of that. It's going to take a long time to get there, I think. But, I think these things tend to have like compounding effects where, it just acceleration, like, we're going at one speed today and tomorrow we go just a little bit faster. And then, we just keep growing over time until eventually, like, we're going to be bigger than any centralized exchange out there.
Yeah, a great example of that is, previous to THORChain, there was like almost no trade volume of Bitcoin on decentralized exchanges for obvious reasons. Nobody else was fucking doing it. We were the first ones to do it. Maya was the second. Chainflip will probably be the third, so forth and so on. And today we see like 1 or 2% of the like trade volume of Bitcoin is passing through THORChain, which is like a huge milestone in my opinion. And Iridanis put out a tweet the other day that was really good, and he was kind of showing how THORChain is now the fifth largest fifth largest exchange, centralized or decentralized, that is trading Bitcoin, which is kind of mind blowing. We're like surpassing Kraken in trade volume, which is kind of like surreal to say it out loud, but it's fucking crazy, right? But to your point, like that the adoption of THORChain is probably going to be an exponential thing and not a linear thing, I suspect. Well, I hope.
Hey guys.
Hey, Nebrana.
So my question was around, big fan of THORChain by the way, and love your spaces every week. My question was around outbound delays. So I know that the 1 hour outbound delay currently is in place because 1 hour is about enough time for like 9 realms or you guys to react when something goes wrong. But I'm assuming you guys figure out something is going wrong because there's alerts set up or you guys get paged or something. So basically, something has to look fishy for you guys to notice it, I'm assuming. So I'm curious whether there could be some sort of a way where the outbound delays happen only when there is an alert fired or there is an in-out amount that doesn't match or something like that, but doesn't happen every single time. Because the main UX pain point right now for all the swappers is outbound delays, in my opinion. And if I had to guess how future competitors steal a lot of volume from THORChain, that would be because either the slippage or the speed of execution there is much faster and smoother. With streaming swaps, slippage is largely solved, but compared to Uniswap, for example, our outbound delays is painful. So, do you see us figuring out a way to securely, being the keyword, becoming like Uniswap one day, where we could go in and out of assets quickly once the swap is completed?
Yeah. So yes, there are like alerts and monitors that we have to like alert us of kind of activity on the protocol. And that, for the most part, goes into the public Discord. So it's not just me and Kyle and whoever else, but it's like the larger community. And to be fair, there's been numerous times when there was some sort of issue or problem with the protocol or unusual kind of trading or something. And just somebody in our own community just kind of like notices it and just like, hey, this is weird. What the fuck's this about? And then they kind of like, mention, whatever, whomever they want to, whatever. And then all of a sudden it bubbles up to us and we take a look as devs and, investigate. And maybe if we need to, we can pause outbound signing or whatever the fuck is we need to do. But it's really a community effort. And so everybody's just kind of watching the Discord and watching view blocks, and people have been successful in the past to point out issues before I was aware of it, or even any alerting mechanism was aware of it. So it's not just like devs, but I think it's the larger community as well that's doing that. But you have a valid concern around the idea that like delayed outbound is kind of hurts the UX in a sense, and it does. That's why we're kind of trying to migrate to this whole swapper cloud concept, which is that the delayed outbound applies differently to different people based upon their historical relationship with the protocol. So you can develop kind of a decentralized identity, or have a clout, or you can use whatever phrase or term you want to use to call it, but you can kind of like earn credibility by just trading and swapping on the network. And the more trading and swapping on the network you get, the more credibility you have. And so the network will just not delay your transactions as much as others. And because yours are not being delayed anymore, your traffic is not being included in the calculation to delay people who are new, who just are just a one-time swapper, on Trust Wallet or some random UI. So we've done simulations, myself and Orion. I think Orion's still in the audience. If he is, yeah, I think he is. We've done simulations to kind of like figure out how effective Swapper Cloud is to reducing the delayed outbounds. It's actually very significant. I think oftentimes it's like on the lower end, like 60% more efficient, and on the higher end, 98 or 99% reduction, which is great. And that doesn't include like, it's probably more effective than even that is because there's less transactions at any given time in the network, because things get out faster. There's less overlap between transactions, which means there's less delay of those transactions. And so I think it's actually more effective than the numbers we actually ran. That's what I suspect, in fact. That was supposed to come out in 125, and it still may. It probably won't, just because other things came up around mainnet related issues that we saw the last week or two. Over Thanksgiving, we had this whole AVAX fucking bomb happen, and we had to deal with that and other things as well. And so the focus, obviously, always is the most important thing is just getting the network to be safe, reliable, blah, blah, blah. So that will push Swapper Cloud if it has to. But if it doesn't get out in 125, it'll probably get out in 126, which is about, in about 2 weeks or so. And then we'll see a significant reduction in the delayed outbound. That's not to say that you will never see a 1 hour delay of transactions at all. That will certainly happen from time to time, but it'll be fairly rare. Like the scenario we just saw a couple weeks ago, where somebody stole, like, I think it was like $27 million with the stables or ETH or something like this from some smart contract, and they just like dumped it all in a very short period of time through THORChain. That would trigger their transactions, and it's probably almost everybody else's, at least the vast majority of everybody else's, to be delayed an hour because this one guy did this one crazy thing, blah blah blah. Which is what we want anyway, right? If there's some sort of unusual trading or unusual activity like that, then we want to delay 1 hour, right? And I think we've just gotten to the place um, where we feel pretty good about the stability of the network itself, and we can feel pretty good about not applying the delay as much as we have been on the last couple of years. But it's still, smart, and it still will apply it when we really want it to be applied. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. If something looks wrong via some sort of an alerting mechanism or something like volatility is really high, that totally makes sense. But for normal situations, for normal swaps, if we could just go in and out, I think that would be really helpful for the UX.
Absolutely, and I think like we're seeing this particular problem more now because the trade volume has increased more than the room price. Because we were at, like, before all this started to happen a few months ago, we were doing maybe like, I think like 10 million a day or 8 million a day in trade volume, and now we're doing like 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. So we've increased the trade volume a lot, but the room price has only increased 6x. And the sensitivity of the late outbound has a relationship to the room price. The room price goes up, we have less sensitivity, blah, 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 so forth and so on. So that kind of like that dichotomy of the room price going up by 6x and the trade volume going up by significantly more than that causes there to be more delayed outbounds than there was before all this thing happened. So we are seeing this problem now because we are like being crushed by our own success, which is a good problem to have in a sense. Which is why we spent time to like, okay, how do we restructure delayed outbound to be more efficient and more smart about how it applies that delayed outbound to, so that we can have this major success of all this trade volume that we've been seeing, and then do another 10x from this point of going from $200 million in volume to 2 trillion, right? 2 billion, 2 billion trade volume. So this is hopefully going to make us closer to that as well. But it may not be, right? Maybe it won't be efficient enough or smart enough. Maybe we'll have a second V2 of software cloud to make it even more efficient, or we'll just increase or decrease the sensitivity of delayed outbound in general by increasing the numbers, the Mimir numbers. We'll have that conversation in a
Right.
debate.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like my thinking was around something like virtual depth, where it automatically adjusts based on volatility, right? So if something like that, where automated way of just having outbound delays in some cases, but not in most cases, would be nice. But I got to run to a meeting. I'll listen to your reply later. But thank you guys so much. Bye.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up the space right after this, but just one last thought on that is like we could just completely remove the outbound delay. That wouldn't be smart right now because there's still new features being added to the network, and we've seen plenty of instances where bugs pop up months after new features are added. So I mean, I could see a future in a couple of years where there's no new features added for like a year or two, and there's no production issues, and then we have a real uptick in monitoring tools and just like automation, because this also ties into Mimir v2, where nodes can pause the network and pause individual chains more autonomously. So what can happen is if nodes really up their own security architecture and we don't ship any new features for a while, and things are kind of humming along as they are, like some time in the future, like you could really reduce or remove the outbound delays at some point in the future when things are relatively confident that that you won't lose funds as a result of that. Obviously, you need things to like level up to that point, step in that direction. But yeah, I mean, you could see a point in the future where we don't have an outbound delay, or it's really, really short, like, a couple minutes, and there's a lot of automated tools like, checking, inputs and outputs, and, doing tests and things like that to every single swap. You could see that happening in the next like couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and relating to that, you could do a thing where you kind of meet it halfway of setting the max outbound to being instead of an hour, set to 45 minutes or 30 minutes or 10 minutes. So you could arbitrarily put it to whatever the hell you want. So it's kind of a halfway between just shutting the whole thing off and making it closer to that line. You could just say, all right, max outbound delay is 30 minutes. And of course, we want to make sure we have the right monitoring tools, at that point to do something like that. But I'm open to the idea, but I'm a little bit hesitant to remove entirely personally. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, definitely not on the short term. Like, if anything, I would think it'd be a ramp down as tools ramp up, and also as that happens, like we have all these other tools that are going into effect too, like Swapper Cloud. Like I'm sure nodes will start doing more analysis, their own independent analysis on different swaps coming through the network and different actions that are coming through the network, because obviously every node's job is to keep the network safe. So if a node really wants to keep the network safe, and that's something that would be like a good thing to look into, is just like more automated tools to say like, hey, this this swap is for some reason sending out like this much more volume than this, automatic make pause on the network, and so that way it can be stopped. It's not just I wouldn't think it'd just be like a switch off. It'd be like a ramp down over, and after a very extended period of ossification where there's really nothing else happening.
Yeah, the other element to this that may not be so obvious is that having this feature in there actually allows us to be able to save money on the treasury when somebody puts in a bug bounty, saying, "Oh, I have an exploit on THORChain. I could take out this much money from the protocol," and we can say, "Well, you can't take out that much because you can only take out this much because of the delayed outbound." The community would see this weird transaction and respond accordingly, and all that kind of stuff. So it saves the treasury's funds as well, inherently when we start getting bug bounty reports from white hats trying to report some ideas, and that it helps us in the past, and I expect it will help us in the future as well. So that's another kind of element to that. It may not be so obvious.
Cool, guys. Well, let's wrap this up, I guess, unless you have any more thoughts.
LFG, that's all I got to say. Let's go. Let's ship.
LFG.
LFG.
All right, see you guys. I'm gonna start. Oh, by the way, I put this on Twitter earlier, but I'm gonna start uploading these to an RSS feed, so they should shortly be up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and things like that. There might be some like processes that I need to go through to do this, but it should be a little bit easier to start getting these that are not on Twitter or YouTube, which I also upload them to YouTube. So look out for those in the future. I'll tweet about it, and if you prefer to listen over there, then you can just listen on whatever app you listen to, or with your RSS feed or whatever. So cool. See you guys.
Later, guys. See you next week.